That having been said, when I first heard about the fair tax, I thought, boy, if only half of that is true, it's worth having my elected officials look into the matter and say, hey, what's going on here? How come we're not considering this? Where's the downfall here? Where's the downside? This reminds me of a joke about how many hardworking Americans does it take to elect a politician. They can't. That's what social programs and illegal immigrants are for. But I disagree with that. I think that we still have the power to elect. We just need to apply it. And that is where you come in. I'm not asking you to endorse or to accept what I've said today. I'm only asking that you lean on your elected officials and insist that they do their job. Tell them to do the research and get back to you. Have them give you any reason that they have for not endorsing the fair tax. And remember, if they tell you something about the fair tax and you feel it's not true, you can go to fairtax.org. And they have pros and cons. We're not afraid to bring out the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it better than our current system? You better believe it. Now, I want to ask you something. How many people here can tell me the latest news concerning Britney Spears? Nobody knows? Come on, somebody knows. Huh? Yeah. There you go. How many people here can tell me what happened with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt recently? Oh, very good. Now, how many people here can tell me what Michael Vick was recently convicted of? Okay. And more close to home, how many people can tell me why Al Sharpton has been allowed unlimited access to the media to spew his lies and hatred for the Duke lacrosse players? And more importantly, how many people here can tell me the difference between the flat tax, the VAT tax, the fair tax, and the income tax? The point I'm trying to make is, your media keeps you fed with mindless dribble. It absolutely sickens me that when Tom Cruise jumped up on the couch for 2 weeks, it was all over the news. That's all you heard about. Britney Spears is in the news. If she goes to the bathroom, it's in the news. Things that are important to this country, our economy, the tax system right now as we know it, they're not being discussed. I ask for an open and honest debate on the fair tax. We have people standing in the wings that are ready to take on anybody who wants to debate the fair tax one-on-one. They won't do it. Ask yourself why. And what can you do? If you believe in this cause as I do, what can you do to make a change? What can you do to help? Well, one of the things that you can do is you can press your media. And you can press the local advertisers. And here's a very good way to do that. If you pick up a newspaper and there's a car dealership in there that you've bought a car from in the past, and you know that that newspaper has not given any fair coverage, and I do not see anybody here tonight from the media. Is there anybody here tonight from the media? Fran, did we alert the media that we were going to be here tonight?
I certainly did.
Okay. My point exactly. They're not here. Tomorrow, if you pick up the Pilot and you see that they got Reedman Chevrolet or whatever Chevrolet dealer in their advertising, send that Chevrolet dealer a little card and say, "Dear sir, in the past I've bought from you, but I want you to know something. Until you start covering issues such as the fair tax and not this mindless dribble that you feed us, I will not be buying from that car company again until you remove your advertisement from that newspaper that refuses to give coverage to the important issues." Sound like blackmail? Maybe it is, but it works. In addition, if you talk it over with your friends, if you have questions, if you get enough people together and you want somebody to come down from the Americans for Fair Tax and address them and tell them about the fair tax, we'll gladly do that. We will do whatever it takes to get more people involved in understanding what the fair tax is and what it isn't. And the final point on the current tax burden on society. The loss of business to foreign countries because of these draconian, arbitrary, capricious tax codes have absolutely drained tax dollars or dollars from our economy. It is estimated that we have sitting offshore, are we sitting down? $11 trillion in different accounts because people won't bring it to our shores because of our tax. If we were to have the fair tax passed, that $11 trillion would flood to our shores almost overnight. Into our economy. Remember this. For true change to take place, we must have intelligent, open-minded individuals looking at the same facts and making informed decisions. Change should never be made for the sake of change, but only when such change will ensure better conditions than the previous habits rendered. And no change is ever easy. It's amazing, though, how fast our government can respond when it comes to acts involved which increases their power. And the Patriot Act comes to mind. We must address this issue with all the zest and the determination that we can muster. I can think of nothing more important than a proposal which gives people back their financial freedom, boosts the economy, eliminates an agency that has for too long acted outside the law, give back the right to being secure in our homes from prying eyes of the government, and funds our government more efficiently than the current system. The challenge is before you. What will you do? Will you tell your children and your grandchildren that you sat idly by as this great country was destroyed? Or will you be part of the history book speaking of the great change known as the fair tax? Thank you and God bless. If you have any questions, except for John, anybody else? John, yes.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought you said at the beginning that corporations don't pay taxes.
They do not. You did not misunderstand me. It's exactly what I said. They do not pay taxes.
Well, a good example.
Well, let me finish, Fran. They do not pay taxes because all they do is increase the price to the final user. That's who pays that tax. If your cost of business goes up, you increase the price of your product, do you not?
Well, and hopefully most people in business do it for a profit. You know, fair rate of return keeps you in business. Now, we do control our dividend rate to where the profit is in the lowest category, but we pay every year to the federal government taxes on profit from our company.
And those taxes that you pay are part of your cost of doing business, are they not? Or not taxes or cost?
Depends on how you want to work it with the accountant, but you're going to pay the tax. Now,
Wait a minute. True or false? Maybe I'm getting a history in economics here. But from where I come from, if I pay a tax, and I've been in business for 33 years, if I pay a tax, that tax is part of the cost of doing business, and that goes right into my product.
well, but it's also money that I earn that I have to give back. So I'll flip it on you.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that, let's use numbers. Let's use numbers. You do $100,000 a year. And let's say that your tax burden is $15,000 and you want to keep, you've got your company set that you want to keep a 20% profit. Okay? 20% profit. Just to pick numbers. If I take that $15,000 out of your $100,000 sales, out of your cost, and you want to keep 20% profit, where do you get it from? That $15,000 you're not paying now. That tax is gone. So now you've got your $15,000 that you have been paying in taxes goes toward your profit.
So you're going to increase your price to make sure that you continue to maintain your profit.
I'll give you a very good case in point. My biggest commodity that I use is steel. Now, I don't know how many of you here are familiar with what's happening in the steel market right now, but if you're familiar with what's happening in the oil market, I buy wire in bulk. My wire 14 months ago was 32 cents a pound. I am now paying 86 cents a pound in 14 months. I used to pay 23 cents a foot for particular tubing. My last bill was 78 cents a foot. Now, that increase, if I've got to have a certain profit margin that I've got to work with. So as those costs increased, I had to increase the price to keep my profit margin the same. Now, if they came back and they took all those increases out, I could decrease my price back down to that 20%, to the same 20%. But I'd still have a 20% profit.
Well, let's say that if I decided as the owner of the company or as an individual employee, what you're telling me is I have to raise my salary to make my profit. I mean, you're telling me that.
Wait a minute, I'm telling you have to...
You're telling me that, in other words, you say, well, you're going to have to pay X dollars. Well, as an employee, you don't have the option of saying, well, boss, give me an extra 20% so I can pay my taxes. That's the same thing you're telling me there. But I don't want to start an argument.
No. There's no arguing in this room. There's discussion. I'm not saying... All I'm saying is, I don't know any economist or any accountant in the world that would say to you that taxes are not a cost of doing business. I don't know anybody that would say that in the accounting world. Taxes are a cost of doing business. And if you can reduce your cost by 22%, which is the embedded cost, that's a reduction of 22% of your costs. Black and white, clear and cut. Yes, ma'am.
In addition to Congressman Linder, do we have any idea how many current congressmen would support the fair tax?
We're up to 74. We are growing.
I guess
There's a bill in the
Cole
House.
is in favor of it.
There's a bill in the House, it's H.R. 25. Okay, and they got 74 co-sponsors of that bill. And there's a bill in the Senate, it's S 1025. And there's 5 senators that have co-sponsored it. Now, on a regular basis, I send mail off to Burr and Dole. And they always respond to my letters. And they say the same thing. Nothing.
That is where there is a form letter on the table back there. After many discussions with many people who have said that they have sent letters out to their representatives, I put together a form letter, and we seem to be getting some results with it, because what it does is it basically says this. You send it to your representative, and in a nutshell it says this. I elected you to do a job, and I don't profess to have the intelligence that you do to do the things that you're supposed to do. So therefore, I'm relying on you to do something for me. I attended a conference recently, or I attended a presentation on the fair tax, and this is what was put before me. What I would like for you to do, Representative Cole, who, by the way, is the only one in North Carolina, is Sue Myrick, who supports it. Sue Myrick, just so you know. Your other 12 congressmen, and both Dole and Burr, do not support it. And when they've been questioned about it, it's fleeing. And that's not good. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. If you're questioned about something... let me ask you a question. Does anybody know why Karl Marx didn't just push for an income tax, why he pushed for progressive income tax? Well, that's income. He could have done that with an income tax, but why did he want it progressive? What? To get support? No. The reason that the reason for a progressive income tax is about power. Money is power. The more money you have, the more power you have. So his thought was, if you start making a lot of it, we're just going to increase the taxes to take more of it away from you, to keep you down where you never gain power. That's why it was a progressive income tax. If it were to be an income tax that was supposed to be fair, everybody would put in the same thing. I love to use the example of when people talk about everybody paying their fair share. I want to throw this one out there, and I've yet I'm always waiting for an answer to this, so I'm hoping I get it tonight. Let's take 3 people. You got Dr. John, lives up at the top of the hill. He makes about $500,000 a year. Okay? He's paying, we'll say, $200,000 a year in taxes. Down the hill, you got Bill. Bill's in construction. He works his 40 hours a week. He's making $40,000 a year. He's paying $15,000, $18,000 in taxes. He spends his weekend on the stoop, drinking his beer, partying with his neighbors, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. He's working. And then down the street from him, you have Tom Loser. He's never put a day's work in his life. He's always been a drain on society. He's always been part of the social programs. He does nothing but take from the system. Tell me fair share. Explain fair share to me. How is it that the doctor who's working 60, 70 hours a week should be paying $200,000, the construction worker $18,000, and the guy who's taken from the system pays nothing? That, my friend, is right what Karl Marx said when he says, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. Tom needs, the other ones have the ability. That's not fair. The fair tax eliminates that type of mentality in this country. Everybody pays into it. You can't get away from it. But the thing that I love about it the most, the thing that sold me on it, was the non-invasive nature of it. Nobody knocking down your door. Nobody, every day you make a receipt. Everything that you buy, you got to account for. All your paperwork, who you do business with. That's nobody's business. Yes, ma'am.
One thing, definitely the deterrent is the Democrats. They won't have anybody to hold in bay to vote for them because they keep giving these. Filling the needs of the poor to keep their votes coming.
Well,
if you don't vote for me, I won't get you your food stamps.
I hate to be in the hornet's nest when I say this, and I feel like I am, but we're all guilty, Republicans and Democrats, because if Republicans were to jump on board, let me ask you a question, and correct me if I'm wrong. The one thing I have noticed in this country over the last 30 or so years, and I'm just 39 years old, the last so many, me and Jack Benny, the last so many years is that I've seen Republican controlled, I've seen Democratic controlled, I've seen Republican and Democratic controlled at the same time. But the one thing I have, where does it go? When does it stop? When does somebody finally put their hand down and say, Abraham Lincoln said it best when he says, the people are the rightful masters of the courts. Not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow those men who would pervert the Constitution. My friends, we are absolutely swimming in people who are perverting the Constitution down there in Washington. I mean, just ask yourself a question. If what I'm saying here, if I'm lying, I'm dying. If you read the book, if there's a lie in there, call Neil Borscht John Linder. If there's something in here that's a falsehood, bring it to our attention. But if it's true, why aren't the politicians, Republicans and Democrats alike, jumping on board? Because they want to control you. And if I may digress, I'll jump on board with something else. Now that you got me all fired up. Why is it that we have all this oil offshore and we're not touching it? Is that about control? Think about it. We have enough reserves in this country, by some estimates, that we wouldn't have to import one drop of oil for 100 years.
Well, then we can't blame George Bush for what's going on. So we're going to go on and say George Bush and those awful Republicans.
That's right.
They are responsible for the money you're spending on gas.
Yes, that's it.
They're bad people.
All I can say, folks, is if you read the Fair Tax book, and this is a great book. It's a great read. It's an easy read.